Today, we're talking about the Shaskes. If you're from around Rice or Goodhue County in Minnesota, you might recognize the name, but it was originally Jaroshefske. Like a lot of immigrant families at the time, they simplified their name to make it easier to spell and pronounce in English-speaking communities. They had already been going by Shaske for years, so making it official in the mid-1920s was just the next step in adapting to American life. This was pretty common for German and Eastern European immigrants, especially in the Midwest. The Shaske story is one about hard work, farming, and community. We'll start with John Shaske. Johann or John Shaske was born on May 12, 1866 in Holden Township, Goodhue County, Minnesota. His parents, Johann Daniel Jaroshefske and Juliana Schultz, were German immigrants who came to Minnesota to farm. John grew up in it, working the land, attending rural school, and learning how to farm from a young age. At just 15, his mom, Juliana, passed away. His dad eventually remarried and moved to Brook Park, but John stayed in Holden Township, keeping up the farming tradition. He built a life for himself, got married, and raised a family there for almost 30 years before moving to Faribault in 1924. But even after moving, farming never really left the family. John passed away on August 7, 1938, after suffering a stroke at his son Clifford's house, which was on the same farm that he had worked on for decades. Mary Clara Schmidt was born on August 17, 1876 in St. Paul, Minnesota, to German immigrants Conrad Schmidt and Caroline Meyer. When she was young, her family moved out to the Nerstrand area, which is probably how she met John. They married in December 1896 in Nerstrand, and built a life centered around faith, family, and farming. She actually outlived John by 23 years, passing away on March 10, 1961 at Woods Nursing Home in Faribault, Minnesota. John and Mary had 4 kids, and each of them took their own path, but they all kept that same work ethic. Clifford Victor John, born in 1897, stuck with farming. He worked the family land in Holden Township for years, keeping it going just like his dad did. He married Lena later in 1924, and they had 3 kids, Ardith, Dwayne, and Dale. By 1960, Clifford and Lena had moved to Faribault, starting fresh. He worked at Rice County District 1 Hospital, Lockwood Auto Company, and Oaks Department Store. And he also did maintenance work at a bunch of other local businesses. Frances Elva Agnes, born in 1902, never married, but she was a teacher for over 20 years in rural Faribault schools. If you or your family grew up in the area back then, chances are someone in your family might have had her as a teacher. Frank Samuel Sr., my 2 times great-grandfather, was born in 1903. He started out making harnesses at G.A. Dreblow and Son in Faribault. But once tractors started replacing horses, he had to adapt. So he shifted to farming like his dad and brother. He married Margaret Woods in 1929, right at the start of the Great Depression. Together, they had 6 kids: Kenneth, Carol, Frank Jr., Lowell, Janice, and Daniel. Florence Merrill was the youngest, born in 1906. Like Frances, she never married, but she worked as a clerk in Faribault. She was part of that early wave of women working outside the home, making her own way. Faith was a huge part of the Shaske family. John joined East Prairie Evangelical Church in 1889, and he was super involved. He was a steward, a class leader, Sunday school superintendent, and a teacher over the years. And of course, farming was everything to them. They worked the land near Nerstrand for generations. Even after John and Mary moved to Faribault in 1924, Clifford stayed back and kept the farm running. That land is still in the family today, because one of Clifford's sons took it over. The original house and barn aren't there anymore, but the land itself is still part of the family's legacy. John and Mary were both buried in Evangelical Cemetery in Nerstrand. If you visit, you'll still see some of their ancestors' tombstones with the original Jaroshefske name. At Beyond Generations Genealogy, we help families preserve their histories through research and photo restoration. The Shaskes weren't just farmers. They were teachers, workers, and community members who helped shape Faribault into what it is today. Their story is one of perseverance, adaptation, and dedication, a legacy that still echoes through the Minnesota countryside.